Hey everyone, in this video we're going to walk through how to automate getting comparables for properties using the Realty Mole API. Now this is really useful if you're purchasing a property or even listing one and you need to estimate the asset correctly. With just a few lines of code, you'll be able to streamline your process or business. My name is Ariel Herrera with the AnalyticsAriel channel, where we bridge the gap between real estate and technology. I love putting out content like this, so please like as well as subscribe if you want to see more of it. All right, let's get started. So right now I'm on the Realty Mole homepage, but just looking to see what this company is all about. It seems like they're a real estate technology company in Austin, Texas, and they service users by providing real estate data, especially for property managers and investors. I'm not exactly sure where their data is coming from. I'm assuming from the MLS. However, feel free to reach out to them if you want a little more information. Now, what's really neat is if you tab over to the API section, they have one API with different endpoints. So we have here the Rent Estimate API, where you can get rental information, comparable properties for rent, historical rent trends, which we'll look through in a future video. But as of right now, we want to focus on is a Property Data API. And what this does is that it details data for properties across the United States, for individual properties as well, and is able to assess what comparables you should use to assess the property you're looking at. And just as a refresher, if comparables are new, we do have prior videos of explaining what comparables are, as well as how to use some of the free tools like Zillow, as well as Realtor, to be able to assess comparables. As you know, I love automation and utilizing data, so we're going to use a more efficient approach. So just as a refresher, what we've been working with for the last couple of videos on comparables is 728 June Lake Lane in Brandon, Florida. I chose Brandon, Florida because it's a suburb within the Tampa Bay area, which is where I reside. This house sold in 2018. What we want to do is, say if we were investors looking to put an offer on this property, what is it actually worth today, even though it's sold? It sold for $320 back in 2018. So what I've seen a lot of people do is that they take the estimates that are on these sites and they use it as face value as the only estimate sometimes of what the property should be worth, but that's not always the best use case. So for right now on Realtor, it says that the estimated value is $332,000. How they come up with that number is probably through some algorithm of the data that they have. However, when we go to Zillow, which is the same property, it has a way higher evaluation. Their estimate is at $382. So this is a big swing. How do we actually assess what the correct estimate should be? Well, at least I'm going to be able to give you a little bit more context as to what Realty Mole, the API, can do to help you filter down on properties that are actually very similar to the one that we want to look at, or that you want to look at. So now I'm tabbing over to the Rapid API page, and this was directly coming from the Realty Mole's link. You just click here, try for free on Rapid API. You can try it for free. However, if you do want to use it for long term, there is pricing. It's not that expensive. We could see for basic, you could just get started using 50 pulls a month. After that, it's 3 cents each. Or you can go into a higher subscription. But for this sake, basic is all we need. So what I really like about this is if you use Rapid API, sometimes these are made by third parties. So when you have questions about these endpoints, it's hard to actually get a right answer for it. But this is actually provided by the same company, Realty Mole. So any questions, I'm sure they could answer it pretty quickly. So now if we go down to rent, actually for sales price estimate, we can see this is in beta. This will return sale price estimate along with comparable properties. So what you need to do first is sign up for Rapid API. It's completely free to sign up. And then where I have test endpoint, you'll see subscribe, and that's where you'll hit subscribe to utilize this within the free parameters. So I'm going to scroll down here to look at what parameters we have. This API looks like it has a comp count, so we can have anywhere between 3 to 10 comparables. As well, we can choose the latitude and longitude of the property that we're looking at, or we could pass in the address, which I think the address is just easier. We can also specify, I believe this is the minimum of the square footage of what we want our comparables to be. So for example, in this case, June Lake Lane is 2,400 square feet, which is a pretty big house. So if a property down the street sold but was for 1,500 square feet, that's a big distinction, a big difference. So we may only want to see those that are within a 300 square foot range. So that's where this API is useful to get that. As well, we can put parameters on the number of bathrooms, how old it is, and this is really important because as of the timing of this video, the market is very, very hot. When I came to the Tampa Bay area about 9 months ago, houses were going within several weeks, and now it's within the week. It's crazy. There's just so much demand of people coming from up north coming down. So you can specify days old as well as a number of bedrooms too. So now going over to Google Collab. This is a notebook environment similar to Jupyter Notebook for those that you might be familiar with that. What's really neat here is that you could literally copy over this notebook and you could run the cells. You don't have to download Python locally or anything like that. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure you get your keys for Rapid API key, subscribe to the Realty Mole on Rapid API, which I discussed. Then you're going to run the imports. These are your libraries. The first one working with files, then to be able to make requests to get the data from the API. Some data manipulation for us to change this into a data frame because I really like seeing things in tabular format. Maybe it's the Excel geek in me. And then being able to plot these comparables at the end. So I have a function here, which basically it's pretty simple. We say what the address is. This is the sales price, so our endpoint. We also have the payloads. This is the parameters that we're inputting. Then we pass our header, response, and then we get a response of the data. So I already wrote the function. You could just copy it and utilize it. So I'm going to run this. Next step is I am going to, if I want to save the data, I want to save it within my drive. So I'm going to quickly click this, and it's going to send me an authorization code. All right, after I paste that in, next step is to get my keys. So I already have a file within Google Drive where I have my API keys, and that's where I'm pulling this information. So you could just replace where I have, say, like Rapid API key, and just replace this with the string that you see on the Rapid API site. And then Mapbox key, we'll get to what that is, but it's going to allow us to plot these properties in Plotly. So I actually had a different address here that I was testing, but now we want to actually look at the June Lake Lane in Brandon, Florida. So it's just four things that we need, which is the street, city, state, and zip code. So say if you have an Excel file of 20 properties, you can iterate through that Excel file and have these as parameters as you go through to get comps for each. So next thing is we want to get the API response. So I'm going to run this. I didn't run this first. So now we pass in the Rapid API key, 3 parameters, street, city, state. Actually, we don't need zip code, so that was extra. So what I'm specifying here is I want to make sure that I'm only getting single-family homes back as comparables, which makes sense, a multifamily, or that wouldn't make sense. And also, say if we have a townhouse, which is a lot of them here in the Brandon and Riverview area, those have extra HOA fees and can be completely different when evaluating. So we want to make sure it's single-family. And I'm restricting the comp count to 5. So if I run this, we could see that our response is we first get a property, which is the neighboring property that recently sold, 727, so that makes complete sense. We also get information on other properties. We could see it returns bathrooms, bedrooms, the city, correlation score, which is great because it is trying to attribute how similar this property is to our 728 June Lake one. as well as the distance away, days old, which we talked about how that's really important based on how hot a market is. Something that's sold 6 months ago may not be as relevant. We also get the latitude and longitude, which we're going to plot in a moment, as well as information like square footage. But of course, this isn't really a friendly format to use, so I love this Realty API. It's super easy. All we have to do is get our response, put .json in order to get the JSON response, which we see here. And then if we use the key of listings, we could just only look at listings and wrap this in a pandas data frame. And if we view it, we now have all this information that we just went through for each of the properties in one single tabular view with rows and columns. So it's very friendly to look at. If we want to actually plot this, I'm going to run this, run both. So I'm using here is Plotly Mapbox. So I'm going to go quickly to show you what that looks like. So Plotly is a charting tool within, you can use it with Python, R, and with JavaScript, I believe. Really easy in order to pull up charts. They came out with Plotly Express not too long ago, which lets you pass in an actual data frame rather than passing in a list. So you can just specify columns that you want to plot rather than having to, again, pass the list. So it's really, really awesome. So in order to get your access token, you're just going to click this link here, and then I'll get you a token. And if we go back, all we have to do is pass in our data frame. Then we say what we want to plot, which is our latitude and longitude, which we had over here in these columns. We want to plot or separate it based on the address. So that's our column over here, so on the property address. And then you can use different color scales. I'm also specifying to zoom in by 15, so you could zoom out if we wanted to. But if we see all the comparables that Realty Mole brought back are all really close distance to that property. So this is 727 June Lake, we're looking at 728, and the rest are super close. So that's why I really like Realty Mole, because it's actually getting properties that are really close to the one that we're trying to assess. Whereas for when we were using some of those free tools by Realtor and Zillow, some of those properties were a bit farther. I think that might have been skewing the valuation, especially for the estimate end. And if you want to expand on this plot, it's really, really basic, but Plotly has a lot of examples on their own documentation site as well as through the community, so feel free to browse, and you could even pop something like this into your website. Or you could use something like Google Maps to do that as well. All right, so there you have it. We're able to get comparables in a programmatic way, and now you can automate part of your business. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel to view more of this content. Thanks so much.